3 o'clock on this Wednesday, the final day of April 2025.
How?
Moving right along. Elijah Campbell over there, Jay Phillips right here, you or wherever you are, and we appreciate you choosing to be with us. Lots to get to on the program. Welcome into the Postgame Show here in beautiful downtown Columbia, South Carolina, where in about 1 hour's time and about 4 blocks away, the great Dawn Staley will be honored with a statue. Going to be at, Lincoln and Senate, right near the Alumni Center and the Convention Center, a block up from where she plies her trade at Colonial Life Arena. A lot of folks will be over there. And coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, one of the people that helped put all this together, City Councilman Peter Brown, going to join us, and we'll discuss, I don't want to say Dawn's legacy yet, although she is certainly building one, right? But legacy, I feel like, is not a word to use yet, just because this is still, this book is far from finished.
Yeah, not to sound like Natasha Bedingfield, but the rest is still unwritten.
Nice. What's that, mid-90s that song came out?
I want to say that was like mid-2000s.
Oh, really?
Or early 2000s.
Okay. I don't know. Look that up, will you?
I was going to pull that up. My guess is 2005.
Okay. See, I was thinking about 10 years prior, but I don't know. Anyway, we'll do that. I'll go in reverse order of guests. Again, Peter will be with us in the 5 o'clock hour. Councilman Brown. I don't want to be too informal. Right?
2004.
2004. Okay. I don't know why. It feels like a 90s song, but I don't know.
It's close to the 90s.
Yeah, but that doesn't count. You know what? That's kind of like your Happy New Year thing. Really, 4 years. That's a long time.
I was 9 years old.
I don't know how old I was by then. I stopped counting. More than 9.
Maybe by a year or two.
More than 9. Yes. 4 o'clock today, our good friend Eric Kimry will be with us, and at 3:30. So coming up here shortly, Lou Bezjak, who broke the news yesterday that Cam Scott is returning to South Carolina basketball. Elijah Campbell has also covered Cam Scott's career, and I know you've been doing some questioning and some journalism today.
Big J.
Yeah.
Folks at MTSU would be proud.
They would, and I think we're all proud of you. I know I am right now. I will say or ask you this, though, and you don't have to necessarily answer it in any particular way. Is this the best portal pickup for South Carolina basketball this season?
I think it has the highest upside. Now, the one thing I like about the guys that have been picked up in the portal is that they're consistent. You know what you're going to get. It's all a matter of how you're going to use them. When it comes to Cam, you had a year of using him. You only played him 10 minutes a game in the games that he got to play in. But in terms of what people who cover the sport and evaluate talent, he has the highest upside. You don't become a top 60 prospect from a consensus standpoint your last year in high school if you're not having that level of ceiling. Like I know that he is, at least when he's coming out of high school, he was, monitored by NBA teams to see what his progress would be his first year, because a lot of guys that are in that top 60 do become one and done.
Right.
But he's got that high-end talent. The talent's not the question.
Right.
It's whether or not he can apply that to the SEC level and be able to fulfill a lot of that promise, which I think he still can.
Uh-huh.
I'm still a huge believer in him, and I think we're going to see him used differently, because that has to be one of the draws of coming back. And I think that's one of the reasons why South Carolina wanted him back, was because they know exactly the amount of talent he has. I mean, Lamont last year would say, was staking a lot of even his credibility to the skills of Cam Scott, right? In terms of, he thought he'd be on the all-freshman team, contending for freshman of the year. That player is still there. And based off of what I've been told, a lot of other Power 4 schools absolutely thought the same way.
Right. Yeah, I think you have learned, and I think, and we'll talk more about this with Lou in just a bit. This wasn't, I suppose, and it's a fair question to ask when after a month you decide to go back to your original school, and the thought, some may think, well, where was he going to go? was he getting like D3 offers and
we heard a lot of that, whether it be to us personally or comments that you read anywhere. And so he must not have had anywhere else to go. I have confirmed is false.
Right.
He had other landing spots, and some very intriguing landing spots at that.
Right.
Not just from a money standpoint,
right.
but from a basketball standpoint. There were places that were interested in him enough to have him visit.
Right.
Just never materialized because he had some good conversations with his coach.
And one of the things that we talked about yesterday, and again we'll flesh out more today, including some of the things that you've been digging around and learning, is how he and Lamont, how Cam and Lamont can, I don't want to say rebuild their bridge or anything like that, but I asked you yesterday, just from a purely basketball standpoint, the defensive deficiencies that were there, and that's the easiest way to say it.
Yep.
How can you both work on being a better defender and at the same time, from a schematic standpoint as a coach, how do you not hide it and not pretend it isn't there? You don't want to bury your head in the sand, but how do you work within that?
Yes.
How do you cover it up? How do you have others pick up the slack, if you will? And there are ways, as you were talking about, to do that, but there's a belief that he can and will get better, because I go back to one of the things that I think you have told us so much as you've studied this system. Playing defense is a non-negotiable if you're going to be a regular contributor, and that means more than 10 minutes a night and only in half the games that your team played.
And there's ways that this can be done too. And there's also a difference between a good individual on-ball defender and a good team defender.
Right.
Those are two completely separate things. Obviously, one is how good you are at staying in front of the man with the ball, and the other is how well you operate in a team defensive scheme, right? Some guys have a harder time adjusting to a defensive scheme and knowing where to be at the right time. So much about defending in basketball comes from positioning.
Mm-hmm.
You can be out of position on help side defense and really hurt your team. That happens a lot. If you're a little late getting to a spot, if somebody else gets taken off of the dribble, or if you don't communicate well in terms of ball screen actions or off-ball screen actions, then you are going to hurt your team without having to be the person guarding the ball. And that's like my biggest beef with like modern NBA discourse, is like, it's one thing that I always kind of, determine if somebody knows basketball or not, is if they talk about like Rudy Gobert having to guard the ball 30 feet from the basket and saying he's an overrated defender because he can't guard a guard 30 feet from the basket. No, he's not supposed to. Right? He is there to roam around and swat shots away from the rim. And sometimes he does not play with the best team defenders, sometimes leaving him isolated in a spot where he is not at his best. Just because you can't guard Steph Curry or somebody 30 feet from the basket does not make you a bad on-ball defender. That would rile me up. But you can be a really good team defender while not being a great on-ball defender. Sometimes the great on-ball defenders need time to kind of continue to get quicker, to continue to tweak some of the things fundamentally about how they're guarding, the defensive stance that they're in. And being a team defender also can just come by from playing a lot more within that system and understanding it at a higher level and knowing where to be at all times and understanding your scouting report at all times. Those are fixable things if you're dedicated to doing that. And the one thing I know about Cam is that Cam is committed to doing that. That's like yesterday I used two players in the NBA as an example. They're the Zach LaVines and the Jabari Parkers. Zach LaVine was not a bad defender because he didn't want to be. Uh-huh. He lacked an understanding of how to play certain things, ball screens, help side defense. Jabari Parker just could not physically care less about defending. Jay Phillips, if you had the basketball in front of Jabari Parker, I don't know if he's even interested in guarding you.
Yeah.
Or me. I don't think he'd be interested in guarding
I'd like to
anybody.
play against a guy like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are the guys at the Y or in pickup games where they're here to just
I'm going
get their
for
shots
40.
up. Yeah, they're here to get their shots up.
I'm going for 40 if that's who's in front of me. We'll talk more about Cam Scott's return to the Carolina basketball program. Again, our buddy Lou Bezjak of the State Paper broke the news yesterday afternoon, and he'll be joining us coming up in just a little bit. Speaking of basketball, last night Pacers eliminate the Bucks Tyrese Halliburton, an American Olympian and a very good guard for Indiana, had a nice game. But his father didn't just like berate Giannis after the game. They went like nose to nose. It was honestly, and I've seen both Giannis and Tyrese after the game saying the same thing. Like Halliburton basically said, "Yeah, my dad messed up real bad." He said my pops, but he said it like twice, and he was you could tell he was embarrassed. Mm-hmm. But his father got right up in Giannis's face. Like when I first heard about it, I had not seen the video. And so then I went and looked at it. I was like, is this as bad as it's made out to be in print? Yeah, it was worse.
Yeah.
It was worse.
And I don't know if there's a worse person to try to pick a fight with after a basketball game than a 6'11" freak of nature with boulder shoulders.
The only person that I think would be, and I don't know, there was actually a joke about that now that you say that. Apparently Nikola Jokic's brother hangs around a lot.
Oh, dude, have you seen what his two older brothers look like?
Well, they look like,
like they could have fought in Balkan Wars without a weapon.
Yeah. They look like they could be Bond, like the Bond villain henchman, or something like that.
Terrifying.
Yes. So that's probably like the only. That's it. That's just it. The only other person that that could be more intimidating might be if you mess with Joker, because then his brothers, and they won't even. I don't think there's even any hesitation. But I couldn't. But and his dad, Mr. Halliburton apologized later. But I'm like, okay, yeah, you got to apologize. But what was going through what was going through your mind? Look, and it's funny because Terry and Tyler, I guess we're talking about some parenting things, and we got to talk about like bad parents at youth sports. What is Halliburton pulling down? $500,000 a week.
Right. And once that he gets that extension here, when he's eligible for it,
$1 million
it's
a week,
be even bigger. Yeah, I mean, he.
I'm like, hey, Dad, the next season, you're going to be sitting in the box.
We're not going to let you sit courtside.
You are not sitting courtside anymore.
Actually, I would start that for the next.
Yeah, I would say next series. They'll be starting up a new series. Who will they get? Will they get Boston?
They will get. That was the 3-6.
So they'll get.
So they would get Boston.
Yeah, I think they'll get Boston.
Let me double check.
I think.
I can't remember.
Well, Boston eliminated the Magic, right? And who's Cleveland playing?
They were playing the Miami Heat, but they evaporated them, and the Miami Heat no longer exist.
The Heat wilted. See what I did there? Thank you. That's probably not the right pun, but that's where I went.
It's a make. Well, that was the 4-5. No, so they're getting Cleveland. Yeah, they're getting Cleveland.
That could be interesting.
That could be very interesting.
But I would still have Mr. Halliburton just not. But I mean, if y'all haven't seen it, I'm like, dude, nah. And Giannis, good for you for not like knocking some of Mr. Halliburton's teeth out.
Yeah, Tyrese Halliburton's making $42 million this year.
Oh my.
He'll be eligible for extension after the 2028-2029 season, where he will have made $55.6 million that season.
Born in the wrong body.
Yeah, I wish I could have put on maybe another 100 pounds or so in high school and bulked up. I tried.
You could.
I tried. This metabolism.
Pizza, burgers.
Tore me up.
Lots of pasta. 2
peanut butter sandwiches before bed was the regimen.
Yeah.
Guess what never materialized? Putting on a ton of weight.
I'm sorry.
Who knew all it took was drinking beer in college to eventually put this bad boy on? I should have just been doing that at 15.
Yeah,
16 years old.
Drinking beer in college and then no longer being on a basketball team.
And not playing basketball for 3 hours a day. Yeah.
That'll do it. All right, we'll come back. A little Carolina baseball, and then we'll talk to Lou Bezjak about Cam Scott's return to Lamont Paris's basketball program. Dawn Staley's ceremony a little bit later on. We'll discuss that. And Eric Kimry on the draft, especially a couple of Gamecocks that he's very close to, and maybe a former Gamecock that he's close to as well. You're listening to the Postgame Show. 20 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Postgame show continues. Lou Bajak of the State Paper coming up in just a little bit. Coach Eric Kimry, top of the 4. Columbia City Councilman Peter Brown around 5:15. Don Staley being honored today with a statue just a few blocks away from where we currently sit. Our own Terry Ford will be down there taking in the festivities. And, we'll try to check in with Terry coming up a little bit later on. We'll see.
Our statue correspondent.
Yeah, but he might also just like slip into Ruth's Chris right there in the
It's
hotel.
right there.
It is right there. Or Five Guys.
It's hungry.
Which is also right there.
It's delicious.
It is. I like Five Guys.
Makes a good burger.
Yeah, they do all right. All 5 of them.
I was going to say, that's a strong starting 5 right there. We've talked a lot of basketball today. That is a strong starting 5.
Speaking of 5, even though I don't think she's listening.
Maybe she is.
My dog, Truby, turns 5 today.
All right.
Happy birthday, Truby.
Happy birthday, Truby.
I went and got her. I talked yesterday at some length about a story of one of our previous labs. Rest in peace, the great Adlu. And if you're wondering, yes, we named her for Adlu Flower. She was white. She was like Snow White. Y'all. She was a yellow lab by like definition, but she was just pure white. But my girls back then, I forget what birthday it was for Adlu, but they got her one of those doggy cakes. You know, it's like dog food, but in the shape of a cake. And, you know, long story short for today, after all the excitement and everything, and the girls singing to her and all this kind of stuff, you know, and she eats this thing, and 10 minutes later, it was all over the kitchen floor. And so I've learned since then, as much as I love my dogs and want to spoil my dogs, I'm not doing that again. So today I went and got her one of those, like, it's food, but it's one of those, like, long-lasting, like, chewy bones, you know, that they can eat. So I got her that. And because our other dog will get very jealous if she doesn't get something, I also bought some of those little, like, bone marrow treats, you know?
Okay.
You know, so that way...
Pacifies.
Yeah, Mabel can get a little something when she sees that Truby gets something today. But happy birthday, Truby. One whole paw.
A whole paw now. Look at her.
One whole paw.
Entering her prime.
That's right. So soon enough, she can drive.
She's a good girl.
She is awesome. She's so. I really
should have brought her in.
I'm not kidding. I really did flirt with bringing, because you know what she would do? She would come in here, and she would get right up under this chair where I'm sitting, and she would just sleep, because that's what labs do. She would not be. She wouldn't bark at anybody. She's never met a stranger. She wouldn't want to go. I mean, she might want to sniff around a little bit, you know, like where Dave keeps his ruffles. But other than that. For his Twinkies.
Once she caught a whiff of it, then she was going to be determined to find it.
Yeah, but otherwise not. But I almost did. One day, you know what? Someday this summer, I'm gonna bring her in.
Yes,
I am. Just I'll. Do we have rules about that? Are there rules? Yeah, that's true. Is the enforcement around here like NCAA enforcement? Like, what are they going to do?
I think that might be the case.
Do I find, is it, what is it, ask for forgiveness, not permission?
See, I would just claim she's an employee.
Right.
I'll vouch for her.
Right.
Yeah, she works here.
Yeah. Yeah, she's
actually doing a job right now, and you're disturbing her.
That's right, yes. She is measuring the comfort levels of this floor. Shh.
It's very important.
That's right.
And if you disturb her, we're not going to get this important work done.
The Atlanta Falcons got fined today, Elijah Campbell, for the Shedeur Sanders prank call. And so did their defensive coordinator. Should the team get fined?
I don't know. I think there was just such public outcry about the prank calling.
Apparently, hang on. There was another prank call during the draft.
Yeah, Mason Graham got prank called by somebody pretending to be the Browns, who did end up actually taking him.
I saw somebody. I think it was. Yes, Graham. Abdul Carter got prank called. Hold on. Other players. This is from the AP. Other players who received prank calls during the weekend. Yes, Mason Graham, Tyler Warren taken by the Colts, Kyle McCord, and Chase, taken by the Eagles, and Chase Lunt of the Bills. All got prank called.
That's super. That's a high level of uncool. But I have a way to deter this.
Okay.
And legally, this might not be allowed to happen because the NFL really can't enforce this, and I don't know what societally, rules that exist that may prevent this type of punishment from being doled out. But I propose a rule that if you prank call a player and during the NFL draft pretending to be an organization, you have to get tackled by the player you prank call.
Yeah.
So the idiot who called Abdul Carter.
Yeah, have fun with that, bro.
And you don't even get pads, bro. You don't. You don't. You're a tackling dummy. Congratulations. You get to be a tackling dummy for the person you called.
Hope you got good insurance.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need it. Yeah, I'd be here for that. I guess exacting some type of proper justice.
Yeah.
That's also a great deterrent.
Yes. Because you know who I'm not going to prank call? An NFL player.
Yeah. Any of them.
If I knew any of them. Even like
I'm not prank calling a kicker.
Yeah. Because you know what the kicker can still do?
Yeah.
Lay me out. You know what they're still trained to do?
Dude,
on kickoffs?
I mean,
lay somebody out.
I've stood next to Ryan Suckup, and he's big.
Can inflict some damage.
Yes, he absolutely can. Real quick here, Gamecocks win last night 5-3 over Charleston Southern. Maybe the bigger issue, though, is the health of Carolina's, honestly, two best players. Cut number 2 on today's list, please, sir. Here's Coach Paul Maneri with an Ethan Petrie, Nathan Hall medical update.
Well, Ethan's situation is more, I don't know if serious is the right word, debilitating than Nathan's. He's got what they call a strain of the AC joint in his left shoulder. It was such a freak injury. If you've watched the video of it, the ball took kind of a funny bounce, and he was kind of ready to play it, and when it took that funny bounce, he kind of accelerated to try to field the ball and rammed his left shoulder into the wall. But that injury, it's probably 2 to 4 weeks to heal, so there's a good chance that he's done for the year, but maybe he'll get back for the last series or the SEC tournament. We'll have to see. In Nathan's case, remember when he hurt his heel at Texas A&M, going after a home run ball, he whacked his heel. It's never really completely gone away, and I probably won't until he rests it completely. And this past weekend, Kentucky has an artificial turf field, and it's particularly hard. There's not a sand base to it. And I worried about his heel pounding on that hard ground all weekend. And about 2/3 of the way through the game on Sunday, I could start to see him limping when he'd run out the center field, for a new inning. So I wasn't really surprised on Monday when he couldn't run at all. And we practiced on Monday and he couldn't participate. So I didn't expect it to be any better or much better by today. So I almost put him in as a pinch hitter at one point, just have him jog to first base, but the situation ended up not calling for it. So he's taking batting practice and everything. We just got to see how it feels over the next couple days, and hopefully a couple days rested, and we'll be feeling better for him by Friday. Hopefully he'll be able to play.
Hard to go into this weekend without those guys. Ethan certainly sounds like he will be completely unavailable. And on top of that, Florida's playing better baseball. And on top of that, you'd like to have as good a feeling around the program as you can, because they'll be honoring the 1975 team that went to the World Series and played for the national title, and the 2010 and 2011 championship teams. So a lot going on this weekend, but it certainly feels like the Gamecocks will be shorthanded. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on. And John Whittle is scheduled to be with us on tomorrow's program to discuss more around Carolina baseball. Cam Scott back in the men's basketball program after a month in the portal. Our buddy Lou Bezak broke the story yesterday afternoon. Lou will join us to give us more detail when the postgame show returns. Time to talk a little off-season Carolina basketball. Big news yesterday afternoon, almost around this time, give or take. Our buddy Lou Bezjak breaking the news that Cam Scott, after a month in the transfer portal, would actually be returning to Carolina basketball. Lou joins us now. You want to talk about that, or you want to talk about the Steelers' need for a quarterback? Your choice.
Oh, they got their quarterback. He's coming. He's whenever he decides. Rodgers is coming. It's just a matter of when. But
are we sure it's not going to be like Bubby Brister coming out of retirement or Terry Bradshaw?
No, or Cliff Dowd, yeah, or Cordell. Well, Cordell wasn't that bad. No, Neil O'Donnell was good. I mean, they got to the Super Bowl, but yeah, I think Rodgers. If not, I think Plan B is Kirk Cousins. I don't know what the Falcons are doing, but I mean that would be a good Plan B.
I don't think the Falcons know what the Falcons are doing, man. So it's all good.
That's the story of that entire franchise.
That's a 50-something year story right there, Lou. Speaking of stories, you broke this one yesterday. Cam Scott is back. I got a number of questions I could go with, but I think I'll just start with what changed. What led us here?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know there was a lot of interest, and I mean, when he talked with reporters after the SEC championship, he sounded like he was ready to come back. Learned a lot this freshman year, and probably wasn't how he envisioned it. Obviously, with the team losing and his minutes and stuff like that. And then a few weeks later, he's in the portal, and I know he got some interest. Multiple schools had reached out, and then. I didn't know how. I just assumed he was landing spot. He was just maybe waiting a little bit, and I had spoken with people in his camp, his family, and he said nothing yet so far. It was a few weeks ago, so I'm like not pressuring them, and they're like, well, we'll let you know when we get close. And here it was yesterday. I got a message, and they're like, we're staying. Yeah. And I'm like, wow. I was definitely a little surprised, especially with, they got with everything that's coming in with the transfers and freshman signees, and obviously Miles Sudi coming back, and Jordan Butler, and but no, I think it's a big get, and it's good to see. I mean, he saw what was out there, and probably maybe the best thing for him is to stay at home, work on his craft, and get better. I know he's going to spend the next month before they get back here on campus and get ready for his sophomore season. So it's a big gift for the Gamecocks. Almost like, you think he's gone, and then that gives him a full ride. I think 13 with Miles in the mix, assuming I think everything's good there. And so, yeah, that's a big hit, I think. And just because how he was recruited, and he was a well-known recruit, one of the higher recruits in state that's ever played for the program. So that's a big hit for Coach Paris to get him back.
And I know a lot of people, just because of how the season went down this year, can maybe be soured on Cam Scott as a player. But, obviously, we both watched him in high school. We both know exactly how good he is. And we both watched him at the AAU level, too, whether it be Peach Jam or anywhere else. We've seen him against really good competition of guys that are seriously good college basketball players right now, and we've seen him do very well. What's the one thing you think people probably forget as it pertains to how good he is and what might not have been accurately reflected on the floor this past season?
Yeah, I just think he's a really underrated shooter. He really worked on that game, especially his senior year in high school. And I think his perimeter game, in high school, he made it look so effortless, and he was very smooth with the ball in his hands and coming off screens and stuff like that. I think that, and even watching, even though things weren't going well last year and that, but you look on the bench, he wasn't stalking, he wasn't pounding, he was engaged. He was fired up for his teammates, and that was good to see. That's one thing I think I look at when things aren't going well. How are you reacting on the bench? Are you a bad teammate, or you bringing the team, you bringing the chemistry down? And I didn't see it, at least the games I saw, and watching him on the bench there. And I just think there's definitely much room to grow, and I think he's going to get better. And he's been talented. mean, you work all your life, and it's probably the first time in his life that he's had this kind of like a setback, and things weren't going his way. And now he wants to work things out. It would have been easier for him to leave and maybe get a fresh start, with all the pressure and expectation. But I think he wants to be a part of what Coach Paris is trying to build, and that last year definitely left a sore taste in not only the fan base, but the team and Coach Paris and the staff, and they definitely want to get better.
Lou Bezjak of the State Paper with us, broke the news yesterday that Cam Scott would be returning to the basketball program. You touched on it in the answer you gave me about a big get, and I asked Elijah that, is this the best get in the portal this year for Carolina? It feels ironic to ask and answer, but I think it's legit. And to just expound further on that from your point of view, Lou, and this will be more of an opinion question, but how big is this, in your estimation, for the program in the sense of a local kid coming to Carolina, signing with Carolina, being on the team, and we've seen them before, but a lot of people ask, why aren't there more of the great South Carolina players that want to be part of the Gamecock program? So from that perspective, the kids that you know and see, and maybe those that are in that next crop coming up, how big a deal is this for Lamont to keep hold of someone like this that's a local star?
Yeah, I definitely think it's big. You want to keep your home state, and especially your hometown. He was part of a talented group that 3 or 4 year stretch. I mean, we saw with Gigi and that group. That was one of the more talented classes and groups that come through the state. And I think having him, and they had success the year. You look at the year that they went to the NCAA tournament 2 years ago. I mean, you had a lot of in-state talent, and you got guys like Colin Murray Boyles and things like players like that. And I think it's big for recruiting, and it's just big. I think, sometimes, like you said, the grass maybe not greener everywhere. Sometimes you just got to suck it up. We'll want to grow and get better, and he's definitely going to do that. I mean, things might change after next year but I mean, he's willing to put the work in. He's willing to continue to build on from last season and get back to where that fans hoped he would be when he signed with the program. When he committed to Texas, originally fans were sour, but then he knew the importance of staying and how things worked out. And I think sky's the limit. I think definitely weren't room to grow, and with the veteran guys that Coach Paris has brought in, they can learn from it. But they're going to expect a big jump from his freshman to sophomore year.
And in terms of how he's going to be used, I mean, I'm kind of under the impression that when he's talking to the coaching staff, obviously he doesn't just decide to go to South Carolina without talking to the coaching staff. It's one of those things that has to be mutually agreed upon. But yeah. I kind of under the impression that he's going to have to be used a little differently than maybe he was on offense. Did you get that kind of same feel when maybe talking to people around him about maybe what the role is going to be for him this upcoming season?
Yeah, I would think it would be a little different. I mean, I watched him in high school, and he does well with the ball in his hands. He could play 1, 2, even a small 3. But I mean, I think he does well with the ball in his hands. But I mean, coming off a 2, I think he gives you that versatility that he can play both positions. And guard's going to be big, obviously, with Michi coming back, and he'll be the primary scorer. But who's going to be the primary ball handler? Do you move Michi to 1? I mean, you got Eli Ellis coming in. He loves to have the ball in his hands. I mean, I think it's going to be kind of a work in progress, and I think the summer's going to be big for this group when they come in and do the workouts and kind of have a clean slate. And Coach Paris could try a bunch of different things, and then when we get to the fall, more of a concrete thing. But I think his versatility, he does handle the ball well, but he's also a really good shooter and and a guy that can create his own shot. So I think it gives Coach Paris and the team a lot of versatility.
Good stuff as always, sir. Best of luck to you and Steelers fans everywhere as you bring in.
Hey, we got Will Howard. I was happy about that.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Makes the quarterback room better.
Yeah, that's a we'll see what happens. Appreciate it, man. Good stuff. We'll talk soon.
No problem, guys. Thank you.
That's Lou Bezjak. Lou at the State to follow on Twitter or X if you're not
It's
already.
fair.
I know. Braves are playing. Give you an update on that. Eric Kimry. I'm all choked up. Eric Kimry coming up in about 15 minutes talking draft and more. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Eleven minutes in front of 4 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. I was going to tell you, Braves fans, that the Braves just tied the game up in the top of the third, which they did. And then just now, a solo shot. I don't know which Rocky hit it off of Chris Sale. Puts Colorado back in front 2-1. The Braves have won the first 2 games of this series, but the Rockies are not good.
See, the Rockies are a team that you could have made up a name. You could have said Rocco Wallace hit a deep shot out to left center, and the Rockies take a 2-1 lead. And you know what? I have the obligation to do, believe you. How many Rockies players could you name off the top of your head right now?
None.
I thought about it myself, and the first one I wanted to say was Nolan Jones, and I forgot. He's not there anymore.
I can't think of any. The guy's name is Doyle, not Harry Doyle.
Or Jack Doyle, former tight end of the Indianapolis Colts.
Anyway, 2-1 Rockies, bottom 3. We'll see. Getaway day. Braves back home this weekend. Been a good road trip, though. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. They won, what, 8 of 10?
They've won 8 of 10. They've won 4 or 5 on the road trip. Yeah. I'll take it.
And usually the road trips are where you slip up in the middle of the season, which is why when they lost the first 7 to the Dodgers and Padres, I wasn't too overly alarmed. Like, yeah, clearly you don't want to start a season 0-7. But sometimes those longer losing streaks occur in the middle of the season when you have those road trips. They just so happen to start their season on a West Coast road trip.
I told you even. I was prepared, like, for 2-5 on that road trip.
Right.
Just not 0-7. So we'll see. And again, Ronald Acuna should be back next week-ish. And Spencer Strider will be coming off the DL, or IL now. IL soon. But we'll see. Braves still have a chance. They've actually, I think, come from behind a few times this weekend and this week to win a game. So they'll get it done. I got a hit on Twitter. Coach Beamer and Jeremiah Donati were also tagged. I feel like I'm in good company. It's just the 3 of us. Thank you.
How about that?
To this Twitter member who just says Gamecock fan, but also says 40 years in healthcare. So maybe a doctor or some other type of medical professional. Anyway, the question, it's a statement and a question. We can't let Clemson outdo us, 3 exclamation points. When will we see the Savannah Bananas at Williams-Brice Stadium? For those of you that don't know what the Savannah Bananas are, they kind of become the Harlem Globetrotters of baseball. They do comedy skits and they do routines during baseball games. And
Banana Ball is a different version of baseball. It is still baseball, but with the different rules.
Yeah, and they're taking their show on the road. They've signed a deal with ESPN, but I think they nearly sold out Memorial Stadium.
They sold it out.
Sold it out.
They sold that sucker out.
I don't know. I honestly, I didn't even see until last week that they were doing Clemson. The rest of the places they're going are like, big cities, so I don't know how they worked it out with Clemson. I will say this. It's not about the Savannah Bananas coming to Columbia or whatever, or Williams-Brice. I would like to believe, and I'm serious when I say this, but with a smile on my face, I would like to believe that Jeremiah Donati and his crew are more actively working on bringing things back, like, say, Liverpool versus Manchester United. That type of event to Williams-Brice. So I'm not dogging the Savannah Bananas. I don't know that I would go to a football stadium to see the Savannah Bananas unless I had a really good seat.
That's just the thing, the demand for them, man. Like, they've got a lottery system. Like, you can't just buy tickets to see the Savannah Bananas. You better put your name in there, put some money down, and
have you partaken ever live or anything, or seen any of what they do? I mean,
I see it online. My mom sends me TikToks on a daily basis of the Savannah Bananas, and she is begging me for Mother's Day to get her tickets to a Savannah Bananas game, and I'm like, Mama, I'm not that plugged in. I wish I was. I can try. I can always try. But we would be fortunate to even be selected to get to go.
Well, I was good. I mean,
strenuous process.
Do they have anything regular in Savannah anymore? Do they still have games at like the minor league park in Savannah?
I think they still do. Yeah, but they take it on the road.
Yeah,
pretty
now,
frequently.
yeah. Oh, it's I get. Look, you
sold out in Nashville. I know. I knew some people that were able to get tickets to it.
Where in Nashville? At like the AAA park? Or
the AAA park.
Okay, so they're not doing the football stadium in Nashville.
First Horizon Park.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen some of it. I mean, it's kitschy. I'm not against it. I've been, Love the Globetrotters. I've seen the Globetrotters live like maybe 3 or 4 times in my life.
But I will say it made Clemson reported 600,000.
I saw Graham Neff said that it was
revenue.
around $500,000 between 4 and 6. Yeah, good for them, man. Well, again, what did Carolina get when Manchester United and Liverpool came? That's what I'm here for more of that.
Oh yeah, and it doesn't have to be the Savannah Bananas, but more
stuff
for your stadium to be used for that makes you money.
I mean, 7 times a year, you could do more with it. Speaking of Carolina football, Eric Kimry coming up.
4 o'clock on this Wednesday. I'm not going to do it.
You wanted to.
I
so
did.
bad.
I
You
did,
wanted
but
to.
I won't. I don't want to because I don't want to scare our next guest. Even though
I think I think we could scare him without.
Well, we
doing
probably
the Barry
could.
White voice
I've
over
probably
the Barry
scared him in
White-esque
multiple
tune.
ways before, but I don't like. Man, now that I'm not living in Columbia anymore, what has Jay become? You know, something like that. Because even if he didn't coach me directly, I've taken a lot of things from Eric Kimmery. So
He hasn't heard the Barry White voice.
Nah, I don't think he has. I don't think he has. But Eric Kimmery joining us here in just a second. Peter Brown, Columbia City Councilman, will join us coming up in the 5 o'clock hour as we speak. Dawn Staley being on. I don't know who all's speaking down there. I'm sure it'll be more people than just Dawn. I think the mayor is speaking and a few other notables from Carolina. Dawn herself will certainly speak with her statue being unveiled at Lincoln and Senate. Eric Kimmery does indeed join us now. Of course, longtime head coach of the Hammond Skyhawks, former Gamecock quarterback, Dutch Fork superstar, and now doing big things at Baylor up in Chattanooga, Tennessee. When are you getting a statue, and what would it look like? Where would you want it to be, and what would you be doing in terms of the statue pose?
No statue for me. I'd feel sorry for the artist because they'd have to make a statue that looks like me. So we would shut that down. But if there was a pose, I think it would have to be some type of like coaching pose, right? But you know what's funny, Jay, is like if you think about like pictures of coaches, like they're all just yelling. It's just pictures of guys yelling. So I wouldn't want to have a statue of me like bending over in an awkward way or yelling. So I don't want a statue at all.
You're not, but I mean, I've been around a lot of coaches, and I've been around you a lot. And I mean, I know you have to holler every once in a while, but I would never portray you or describe you as a yelling coach. I mean, I could do that with a lot of coaches, but I wouldn't ever say that was you. You've got a much calmer demeanor on the sideline.
Well, I think you have to. And, I always say, man, all coaches are teachers. And, if you miss a math problem in class, you don't get yelled at for it. So you teach somebody where they made a mistake in their process. And that's kind of what coaching. But, listen, every once in a while, especially today's day and age, we got all these weapons of mass distraction around us. You got to yell and get somebody's attention.
I'm stealing that, weapons of mass distraction.
I actually
I consider myself.
Well, I think what Eric just gave us, though, I say us, but like that's a good Saturday Night Live bit, right? Like the coach that teaches as well, but he's like screaming at somebody for missing.
That would be funny.
So we need to.
Can you imagine like old Chris Farley?
Yeah, something like that. Just
yelling at a kid, "Why'd you carry the decimal point over here?"
See, I think we just came up with something.
Yeah.
A lot to get to here in a short amount of time, but I do want to start with two of your former players who are now going to get maybe the most exciting opportunity of their lives, and that, of course, is Jordan Birch and Alex Huntley. And if I'm not mistaken, Eric, you got to help me out here now, and I know I'm a Hammond guy too, but I believe Jordan Birch is the first Hammond Skyhawk to be drafted into the National Football League?
Yes, that's correct, for sure.
I mean, there's been some Carolina players and some D1 players through the decades even that have come out of Hammond. But, I thought so. I thought so. Okay, I'm serious when I ask you this because you obviously helped him develop into the kid that went to Carolina and was able to have some choices beyond that. How when you heard his name, you are, proud coach and almost like, proud surrogate parent in some way too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, Jordan's such a great kid. I had him for 3 years at Hammond. I never had a single issue with him. Nobody at Hammond did. He's such a respectful young man and intelligent and, just a joy to coach. And so, yeah, proud. First high school player that I've coached that, is going to be in the NFL. And hopefully Boogie makes it as well. So that'd be two in 1 year. So anytime you coach a kid and you know him and his family for, a bit of time as he's maturing and going through, the process of growing into a prospect and an adult, it's really rewarding to see that come to fruition. And then, the year I was coaching tight ends at South Carolina, Jordan and Boogie were there too. Mm-hmm. So I got to spend another year with both of them in college, which was really, really special.
Eric Kimrey's on with us right now. And Eric, I mean, Jay and I have joked, but also not so joking, that we might end up seeing Boogie Huntley as the governor of South Carolina one day. Obviously, his on-field impact is one thing, but the one thing that's always stuck out to me is his locker room impact and just being a leader of men. How well do you think that is going to fit in in an NFL locker room as well? And what are the Cleveland Browns getting with somebody who's got that pedigree?
Sure. Just an impressive young man. So comes to Hammond as a ninth grader and is elected student body president. I believe the first African-American male to become the student body president at Hammond. And, a lot of these guys are in school from pre-K all the way up, Jay can tell you. But to come as a ninth grader, just commanded respect from everybody. Everybody loved him. And as he went and practiced, our team went. I look at him and one other guy that I've coached in 20 years as the best two leaders I've ever coached. And you saw that at Carolina as well. Just his integrity, his intelligence, comes from a wonderful family. I still talk to his mom, Lisa, to this day. I just couldn't be happier for him. So I know this. He has all the intangible qualities that you need, and any physical limitations that he may have now on an NFL field, Boogie's going to be able to, do the best he can to overcome those because of the person that he is.
Talking to Coach Eric Kimrey, going back to Jordan Burch, and I know some Gamecock fans soured on him for leaving school, and again, opportunities in today's world are far more numerous than they once were. But he is a local kid, and again, he did play at Carolina for a couple of years. But when you look at him, Eric, and see his development from your team and winning titles with you to Carolina to Oregon, there's a lot of expectation on him to be successful. What's he got that maybe we don't talk about enough that is going to come out at this level?
Well, he's got it all in terms of the size, explosive ability. He can rush the passer. He's extremely long. This guy was 6'6", 270 playing point guard in high school. Yeah. So he's just a freak athlete, and listen, I understand that, Gamecock fans were disappointed that he left and went to Oregon. And I hope now a couple of years have passed to where we now see the norm of college football. And it is truly a business first, organization, whether you like that or not. It had its positives and its negatives, but Jordan made a decision that was best for him and for his family. And it's hard to tell a kid he's wrong in the situation that he was in. And trust me, it hurt when he left too, because I didn't want him to leave. I wanted to graduate in Garnet and Black, but I also completely understood the decision. But I think Jordan's still developing, and he's gotten bigger now, Jay. He's like 280 plus pounds, so he can play inside now. That's not something he did at South Carolina. I felt like every year that we had him, every year at South Carolina, and then he really put it together this past year at Oregon. And now he's going to make a lot of money doing it.
Eric, one thing that you mentioned with Jordan about being able to play point guard at his size and his athleticism kind of led me into something that I wanted to ask you today too. This is from a tweet from Tracking Football, which is an independent scouting service. They overviewed the entire NFL draft and came to the conclusion that 91% of those picks were multi-sport athletes in high school. 67% of those picks competed in track and field. 48% were 3+ sport athletes. And I think there's a lot of discussion amongst, high school coaches, parents about maybe specialization. But for hearing those stats right there, what does that tell you about maybe the benefit of kids playing multiple different sports in high school before they even get into college and play?
I totally agree. And we stress this at Hammond, and we stress it at Baylor too. In fact, our football players at Baylor, if they don't play another sport, we make them run track. And I know Tom Knotts out of Dutch Fork has a similar mentality. It's just good for your full development. Football is such a unique sport where it combines a lot of different body types and a lot of different strengths and weaknesses that you can put out on the field. You can have big guys that are strong and maybe not as fast, small guys that are quick. And other sports help develop those skills. And, to me, clearly hand-eye coordination is a big part of the game. Basketball develops that. Speed is a big part of the game. Track and lacrosse now develop that. So, to me, football is not a sport you can play year-round. A lot of these kids that specialize, their club-level sports are actually more important than their high school-level sports, when you think about baseball programs and AAU basketball. So for football, it's unique in the sense there really is no club, which is great because it would be really hard to play, 30 or 40 football games in a year. Your body just can't do it. So, yeah, I think if a young person's listening to this or a parent, play as many sports as you can, as long as you can. Jay, my best sport was baseball. That was your old sport until I was a junior in high school. And who would have known, that I would have been able to play quarterback and then end up playing on the collegiate level. So, I do think it's important for kids to do as much as they can as long as they can.
Speaking of your time at Carolina and now knowing what you do of Shane Beamer working on his staff, one of the things that Elijah and I have talked about, and we discussed this with Nick Emanwari the other day, Eric, was the development within the program. And from your year there, but what you do to develop your kids, too. I mean, it's obviously crucial, but even for Carolina, that program well. Carolina's not, as we said, you're not going to be Ohio State or Georgia or programs like that are just going to have the talent load, that's the envy of almost everybody. When you take a step back, kind of take us through what that feels like inside the Carolina program, or how much in your year with Shane there was the stressing of the development of the roster to get to a point where now you're putting a bunch of dudes into the NFL.
Well, of course. I mean, that starts with recruiting. And I do think now with the portal and the world that we live in, it is more feasible for a school like South Carolina. I like to compare us a little bit to Ole Miss, a school in the past where it was kind of battling in that Western Conference. You've seen what Kiffin's done and their ability to attract players. You can beat Georgia and Ohio State now on a kid if you're South Carolina. It simply comes down to one thing sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so, it's exciting to see, what we're doing in the portal. And I do think this, when you get in the portal, you kind of have to stay in the portal. You've got some blue bloods that can recruit high schools, specifically, and then kind of address needs with the portal. But I do think where we are at South Carolina, just the nature of our geography and our recruiting challenges, the portal is a win for us. And I think what was really encouraging, if you look at that draft, I think, we have 5 guys off our defense get drafted, and 2 of them were new last year. Yep. So that's really encouraging to show that the coaches at South Carolina are doing a great job of evaluating talent. Now, the scary thing is you lose 7, 8 guys on defense, you got to go back in the portal and do it again. And you saw what happened with Florida State last year. Sometimes you can miss. And, keeping a locker room together in this new world of college football, where it's not so much about who you're playing for, but more transactional, I hate to say that, but it's true, is a challenge, and it can go south quickly. But the good thing about Shane, the one thing I love coaching for him, is he's such he pays attention to the small details of culture, of relationships, and of developing the guys while they're there. And that goes a long way for a kid to not leave your program.
I'll get you out of here with just a quick little thing. You might remember a time when you were coaching my youngest in church ball. I told the story earlier today because the story of loud parents came up, and how I had to move one time after sitting next to a dude who was berating his own daughter on our team and the official all at the same time. And I didn't want anybody to think I was like with that guy. Yeah, I think I told you that story. You don't have to say names or anything, but I did share that earlier today.
I know that guy too. He's a nice guy. Just maybe had a bad morning that morning, but it happens for sure.
It was almost surreal. I was like, you know what? I just need to separate, and we'll see what happens. Hey, I always appreciate you. Good stuff on again with Jordan and with Alex. You had a major part in where their life is today. So congratulations to you, to them, to their families, and now it'll be fun to watch what happens next, man.
No doubt. Hey, and also congratulations to Quincy Riley. He graduated from AC Flora. His mom, Kelly, and I went to middle school together at Han Middle School, and that young man just got drafted in the 4th round by the Saints. Yeah. Nice. So another local Columbia kid to celebrate.
Good stuff. Appreciate you, Coach. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Jay. Talk to you soon.
Yep, that's Eric Kimry. Eric with a K. Kimry. Follow along on Twitter. Postgame Show. Rolling on. Welcome back in. Postgame show rolling on this Wednesday. Thanks again to Eric Kimry. Always a pleasure to talk to the coach. It is cool. Again, go Skyhawks, man.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
Proud Hammond parent.
That's right. I went there for a little bit.
Didn't realize the Saints drafted a former Columbia native.
Yeah. I was just
Columbia
looking
native.
at yeah, he's a Columbia native still.
Yeah.
Not former.
Yeah. A little redundant.
Yeah, still
Former
there.
resident, native of Columbia. The English language.
I was
Hard for me to
listening-
master.
I was listening to our buddy Chuck Oliver's show one time. Michael Haney and I were driving over to Media Days, and I forget who his partner was at the time, but Chuck used to teach, and his partner says to him, "Well, Chuck, they were talking about something. I forget the subject matter, but he said, well, Chuck, he said, you used to be a former English teacher," and Chuck said, "No, I'm still a former English teacher."
That's good.
It was good. And that's all I remembered about it. That struck me so funnily that I just no, that's a solid comeback. Again, one of the big stories of the last 24 hours has been Cam Scott's return to Carolina men's basketball. We spoke with Lou Bajak, who broke the story yesterday afternoon. He was with us in the last hour on today's program. You can find that on the YouTube channel or on our podcast page. But Elijah covered Cam Scott in high school when he used to work for the Chronicle over across the river. And I know you've been doing some, I'll say digging. It's not like this is some kind of salacious thing, you know.
Right.
Digging is usually a verb used in journalism when you're trying to find some scoop on, something. So, but I'll continue with the word, if only because just it is surprising. And even Lou admitted, like, oh, when he got the call, he said he had been speaking with folks around Cam, and they said, we'll let you know. And that when they let him know, it was, we're staying in Columbia. It's like, oh, okay, because you just these days you just assume, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you've been doing a little more because again, one of the questions, somewhat rhetorical, I suppose, was, well, is he coming back because he didn't have anywhere else to go? And you've learned more about that.
I have, yes. I've been texting around, and I do have a source within Clemson's basketball program, because I wanted to get something confirmed, and there was a lot of interest from Clemson for Cam Scott. Like there was definitely a lot of interest on their end to try to get him to come to school there, and there was communication back and forth between Cam and the people around Cam and Clemson to get him on, to be able to try to get him to campus and be able to visit. But that was those talks were materializing and they were happening. And then South Carolina was able to talk him back into coming back. And I think there was a desire. I have no doubt that there was a desire to stay. But it certainly feels now, based off of some of the extra conversations I've had in the last 20 minutes, by phone,
right,
that, the interest from those other schools was legitimate. Right. And I think once I got one from somebody within that basketball program that confirmed it to me that there was some real mutual interest on both sides, that it wasn't. So any talk about Cam coming back because there was not a market for Cam would be factually incorrect.
Yeah. I don't know how far you can go with it, but there were several high-level D1 schools that were at least involved. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. UAB was on there, and maybe not like the highest level, but UAB was a 24-win team last year. Andy Kennedy coached at Ole Miss for a while.
Yeah, Andy Kennedy said that says enough.
There was interest there, as well as Boston College. Yeah. And obviously they got a good look at Cam because they played at Boston College earlier this season. So there was definitely
it's cold up there, man.
It is. Pro Sports City, but a cold one.
Yeah, it's cold.
But there was definitely some interest and some other, I guess, lower major programs that were willing to offer a lot of money.
I think one of the big things now, and Lou talked about this, Miles Studi coming back. There is still a sliver of a possibility that Colin Murray Boyles comes back. I again, sliver.
I think the sliver is like 3% chance. I think he's going.
I was gonna actually, if I was gonna, instead of EBPIing it, I was gonna like JBPI. I was gonna actually say 0.4%. So you give it a much bigger chance than me.
Yeah, just because I never say never anymore.
That's a significantly larger chance. 0.4% to 3%. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But anyway, no. Again, sliver, right? But the point I'm making is, what about roster spots, and usage of the talent? And we talked about that with Lou last hour. Are you going to see some form potentially? We don't know yet. Of kind of a 3-man rotation at the one, where there isn't, and as we've talked about, I'm not trying to compare South Carolina basketball to the Golden State Warriors or the old Chicago Bulls, in the triangle offense, of Tex Winter back in the day. But Michael Jordan's Bulls never had a true, one. Again, the John Stockton, Isaiah Thomas type one, Bobby Hurley of Duke back in the day, or
Ron Harper, I guess, was technically.
I don't know,
90s.
man.
B.J. Armstrong.
B.J. Armstrong was probably the closest they ever had to a true one. But when Steve Kerr was there, he was a 2.
He was a shooting guard. Yeah, he's catching and shooting.
But Jordan was often a 2, right? A 2-3. They just didn't have that true facilitating one. You don't have to have it. You'd like to in most cases in this sport, but can we see more from what you've seen? You and Lou were talking about that. Y'all seen him a bunch. So tell fans again, is there an ability to be capable at the one for him? We've seen what Michi can do a little bit at the one, and we'll see what Eli can do, Eli Ellis, when he comes in. But that could be where this goes.
As a one, maybe. But here's the thing with Cam, is I think he does handle the ball really well in a ball screen scenario. I think he is really good at getting downhill and getting into the paint. There's another thing in terms of being able to, I think he makes the right basketball play in terms of knowing where, the help comes from, where the open man's going to be. I think there just might need to be a little more seasoning, I guess, on the, passing accuracy, and that just comes from playing, too, and getting accustomed to the speed in which college basketball is played. Not saying he can't do that. I think that's maybe the next step, right? If you're going to have him in ball screen situations, playmaking out of those is equally as important as scoring in terms of playmaking for others. I think there's still some room to grow there, but his ability to score off the bounce, I think, is probably the best part of his game. That and utilizing the athleticism he has in the open floor. So I don't know if it would be the Talon Cooper type one, because he does have more explosiveness than Talon as just an athlete. But one thing Talon was really good was that he was an accurate passer.
Right.
And he, too, knows the right basketball play. And I think that's that's one extra step that he can take to kind of fully round out his offensive game and make it to where he is an absolute plus on the floor whenever you do start running offense through him.
It'll be fascinating to see what happens in the coming weeks. Again, is South Carolina still looking for a true one? I think the answer to that question is yes.
Yes.
And again, I don't want to give anybody a false sense of hope about Colin.
No, don't expect it.
Yeah, I
straight up do not expect it.
Yeah, I certainly believe Colin Murray Boyles will be in an NBA uniform next year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Firmly believe it.
Yeah. But in terms of just what's available for the roster, what does this mean? We shall see. Braves have 2 on, 2 out, still down 2-1, top 6 in Denver. Keep you updated on that. Champions League going on, man. Yeah, after yesterday's game, we got a 3-3, Barcelona and Inter Milan right now.
Ooh.
Yeah, they are scoring
saucy
at will. We'll come back on the other side, though. Big news potentially out of Austin. If you thought Ohio State spent a lot of money last year to win a national title, Texas just said, hold my beer. We'll explain when the postgame show returns.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to get to you that are making some traffic backups on the roadways. By that, I mean just some heavy traffic. Doesn't look like this is accident related, or at least it is not specified, but there is some heavy traffic reported on I-20 eastbound. That's between US 601 at exit 92 and US 521 near exit 98. We also have some reports of stop-and-go traffic, some heavy stop-and-go traffic on I-26 westbound between Sunset Boulevard at exit 110 and I-20 near exit 107B.
Time to talk a little college football. We don't do enough of that around here. Kidding.
I don't even know what that is.
Everything's bigger in Texas, right, including the payroll. I mentioned this going into the break that last year I think the word was give or take. Ohio State paid players through NIL deals and other things roughly $25 million. Now, it doesn't mean if everybody goes and spends $25 million, they're going to win a national title because still only one school can win the national championship.
Yeah, just ask the New York Mets how being one of the heaviest spenders in the history of Major League Baseball has turned out for them in terms of producing World Series championships.
Do you have some sound effect here that I could, because there's probably something.
Well, you know what? Let me ask Mr. Met. I have Mr. Met here. Oh, Mr. Met, actually, he's asking me a question. Yeah. Okay. He's asking me, does spending a lot of money equate to winning World Series titles?
How about no?
There you go.
Dr. Evil's got an answer.
He does. Dr. Evil's fantastic. But Texas, Kirk Bowles, who covers the Texas Longhorns for the Houston Chronicle, put out the following. Let me just read it to you so you can get a real idea of it, all right? This is in today's Houston Chronicle. With the addition of 10 football players out of the transfer portal and probably one or two more on the way, the budget for next season's Texas roster has grown as well. It currently sits somewhere between $35 million and $40 million, which counts the likely revenue sharing allotment expected to be $20.5 million, as well as payouts through the Texas One Fund. A connected source tells the Houston Chronicle. This also figures to be, he says, a one-time exorbitant expense because athletics director Chris Del Conte and others have said the school plans to phase out its collective in favor of the revenue sharing via the House settlement and with the move to name, image, and likeness payouts through corporations. Said the source to Kirk Bowles, quote, "It's just unsustainable. The next season after this year, the whole world will be back to reality." Kirk says he did not get a hard number as to how many Texas Longhorn players will be earning at least $1 million. And he also mentioned that Texas last year had Quinn Ewers not taking any more money from the Texas One Fund because he was paid by corporations, and that would allow Texas to have more good players around him. So now we're even hearing about that in college. Hey, I'll restructure my deal.
So we could bring
so
in
you
more
could put
talent
more
around
people
me.
around me, right? Like that used to be an NFL thing or a pro sports thing, and now it's a collegiate thing. $35 to $40 million. That's listen. I'm gonna be serious here, and at the same time, say something a little tongue in cheek. Texas has always had more money than just about everybody, and it hadn't really worked out.
Yeah, Bevo asked me the same question as whether or not, this just funneling cash into a fund to give to players guarantee success in college football. And Dr. Evil gave him the same answer.
How about no?
So this, I think on the one hand, this will probably make a few teeth chatter around the Southeastern Conference because that's a lot of money. And then you talk about, they say they want to get to a point of where corporations are paying name, image, likeness. I am all for that. That's what it's supposed to be. We're now NIL has almost become that means pay for play. And I don't think anybody wants that. I don't mind the revenue sharing part. We've talked about that many, many times, you and I, about how much more revenue has come in relative to where inflation is in this country in the same amount of years. So I'm fine with players getting their cut. That's perfectly acceptable. But I do want name, image, likeness to actually mean something, where, again, a Spencer Rattler is doing a deal with Dick Dyer and he's driving one of their Mercedes. That's what it's supposed to be. I'd love to see the University of South Carolina partnering up with some of the big companies in this state. I'm not kidding when I say this. Work with Lenore Sellers to go get, a BMW off the line up in Spartanburg County. Or somebody go get one of those cool Volvo cross countries down in Charleston. I don't know if anybody's going to be flying a Boeing jet anytime soon. But why not partner up with Boeing to do something? Things like that. Or, again, if you just want to go, do something with the folks over at Zestos. I don't care. You see the point. But should people be worried that Texas can do this? The arms race is always a thing, Elijah, and has been for decade upon decade upon decade, right? There's really nothing anybody can do when it comes to how much money there is. It's kind of like the Yankees, right?
Yeah.
It's just, okay, the Yankee TV deal is always going to be more lucrative than the Royals TV deal or the Twins TV deal or the Brewers TV deal.
And we have a parallel for that in college football. It's the Notre Dame.
Yeah.
They have their own TV deal, and that helps you it gives you an advantage.
Texas there's whether we like it or not, Texas is a really big state that churns out all kinds of industry and makes all kinds of money.
And the money there's old.
It is, and they love the Longhorns, man, or the Aggies. Hell, the Aggies spend a lot of money too. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't help them either. I wouldn't worry too much about this if I were the Georgias and Floridas and Alabamas. They're going to attract some kids, but they always have.
Yeah, it's two things for me. One, these schools have been spending lucrative amounts of money for a long time, and for Texas A&M, they spend more for an 8-win season than any team in the history of college football. And it's always probably going to be that way because they're Texas A&M, right? Like the Los Angeles Clippers can break salary cap rules, and they'll still probably never win an NBA championship. You know why, Jay Phillips? Because they're the Los Angeles Clippers.
Yeah,
and they're that's what you are. But two,
even with Steve Ballmer's money,
right? And two, with separating or maybe dissolving NIL, at the same time, I've never truly bought into that the NIL era was just to get players' endorsements. It was always going to be paying these players. NIL, that term was a shield for schools to not employ players because they don't want to make them employees for a plethora of reasons that we have discussed on this show ad nauseum for the last year and a half since I've been on it. And that's a pretty steep issue, and their workaround on that was to allow them NIL deals, even though it was never about that. Ultimately, you are not going to – they just couldn't get away with not allowing these players to make money, so NIL was kind of the shield. And it's maybe, publicly putting the onus on somebody else to pay your workforce, which is never a sustainable model to begin with. And that doesn't create a market that you can roll with because then hardly anybody gets paid for their services, right? It was always going to be pay for play, and at some point, asking your local businesses to pay your players for you was never going to be a worthwhile, a worthwhile system.
Yeah, we'll pay 6 or 8 of them.
Right. They ain't going to pay all of them.
Yeah, I need you to pay 90.
Oh, man. Bob, I know you're running your own business. You have your own stuff to deal with. You're already spending advertising dollars all over the place. But, we really need a left guard. If we just get this left guard, right? If I can just get this left guard. It's like those people in your life that are always asking you for money because they have some scheme they want to invest in. If I can just get this to work, I'm telling you, it's going to come back tenfold. And ultimately, you keep doing that and doing that. you're not going to get the return that you hope for or that they hope for, because you know what? Those left guards get hurt too. Those quarterbacks get hurt too. Those players underperform as well. And eventually your own local economy is going to be tired of funding your operation.
By the way, Kirk Bowles also reports this. Quarterback Arch Manning, I'll read again verbatim from his piece in the Houston Chronicle today. Quarterback Arch Manning is by far the highest paid Texas player as expected, but doesn't take a dime from the school. He says he and his family acquired all. Will that change next year with the revenue sharing? Or is he going to do the same thing that Quinn Ewers did last year? No.
If you can pull that off, you do it.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think any schools are actually going to fully dissolve NIL, because they want that crowdsourced funding.
Yeah.
And nobody turns down crowdsourced funding. Nobody.
Right.
If people are offering to give you money to help with your cause,
if somebody
you don't say no.
Right.
Has any organization on planet Earth ever turned down a check for $1 million? The answer is no. The answer, quite frankly,
How about no?
they're going to accept that money. If someone came to the University of South Carolina right now and said, hey, I want to give you $2 million to be able to give NIL deals to your athletes, they're not going to say, nah, we have enough with revenue share. It's fine. We want to do this. We want to do this specific way. We got revenue share. That's fine. You can keep your $2 million. That's a conversation that would never happen.
If Texas is going to spend between $35 and $40 million, who might you guess? And I don't know. I'm asking. This is just kind of a conversational thing. Who's going to be second on the payroll amount list? I mean, is it going to be A&M, LSU? I would think they're Oklahoma even.
Ohio State?
No, I'm talking in the SEC. In the SEC. But yes, Ohio State, I would think is going to,
Alabama.
They'll go up. That's the thing. Alabama, if Alabama's going to do it in relation to the schools we just mentioned, that's going to be tough. Is there a J or nay that we have?
There is.
So J?
J. Yes, that is a J.
All right, we'll do it next. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock here on a Wednesday afternoon. Again, hard to believe it's the final day of April 2025.
Best believe it.
It's also my youngest dog's birthday.
Happy birthday, Truby.
Truby's 5. One whole paw. Very excited. And
Everybody say happy birthday to Truby.
yeah, please do.
Everybody.
She's again. I really should have brought her in today. I will. We will do that.
I want to get her in the chair and put the microphone in front of her. I'm just going to turn the mic on. Whatever sound is made is made.
She'll just sit there and smile at it, man.
Love it.
That's what that dog does. She just look up and smile at it, like, oh, that's fun. She's awesome. Very, very happy birthday. Again, I don't think she's listening though, so she can't hear me.
You never know. She might have gotten into a car and turned it on and sits there and just quietly enjoys hearing her dad's voice.
She might be driving around town right now.
Yeah.
She might.
Dude, somebody's got to do some errands around here.
I got a hunch she's asleep.
Probably. Prime nap hours. You were on air at the prime dog nap hours.
She can sleep too. There's no question. All right, it's Jay or Nay time here on a Wednesday. Let's see what happens.
It absolutely is. So, yeah,
Final Jeopardy music. This seems.
This is. Yeah. This isn't Final Jeopardy for you because this is a recurring segment. But Jay or Nay, there has never been a player in the history of pro sports who is just this much better in the playoffs than the regular season than Jamal Murray. He scored 40 last night.
I did see that
it's 8 threes.
I did see that it's that was his 6th 40-point playoff game.
That's now first in Denver Nuggets history. Second is Nikola Jokic at 5, and third is Gamecock legend Alex English at 4.
I was going to say, yeah. And how many did Melo ever score 40 in the playoffs? I don't know.
Not more than 3 times.
I mean, recency bias being a thing, you want to say Jay? Could we revisit this with further Like
evaluation?
of course. Fact. I mean, but that is pretty.
Because Jamal Murray's never made an All-Star team.
Yeah,
and he's got 6 40-point playoff games.
I think the question you ask would make me say nay. But there's certainly a case to be made.
Now, we've had in history some players, like in Super Bowls, right? There have been a lot of random Super Bowl MVPs. Outside of the Super Bowl, where your poor Broncos got demolished, have you ever heard the name Malcolm Smith?
No.
He was the MVP of that game.
Right.
And he did nothing else the rest of his career. Larry Brown, we all know, was the basketball coach.
Right.
Who coached everywhere, NBA, ABA, college, you name it.
Right.
But for poor Lou Bezak, he remembers a Larry Brown as picking off Neil O'Donnell in the Super Bowl. Those are one-offs, right? But this guy's done it so many times in the playoffs, and he's just a barely above average NBA starter. Never been an All-Star.
Or who's my catch the ball on the helmet guy for the Giants?
David Tyree.
Tyree.
Yeah. And those are usually one-offs.
Yeah.
This is pretty consistent. We see this a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's a case to be made, but I'm going to say nay only because the question you asked does
forces you to have to dig in the memory bank a little bit. Yes. Jay or nay? Bill Belichick is the University of North Carolina head football coach in the fall of 2026.
Nay. I don't think it's going to happen. In fact, today I was watching, I'm glad you asked me that. Nay. I was watching the Dan Patrick program this morning on Peacock. Luke DeCock of the Raleigh News and Observer, terrific columnist up there, was on, and he killed it today.
Oh, he was awesome.
But I wrote down the quote. Dan asked him virtually the same question, not quite the same way. Over under 1.5 years.
I was going to say he asked Jay or nay.
He had 1.5 seasons as coach, and he immediately said under, and he said, quote, "It's going to be a beautiful disaster."
And you say it's something like a monkey flying in an airplane.
737.
Yeah, like a monkey flying a 737.
You know how it's going to end, but how we get there,
we don't know. And you know what? I agree with that.
It's going horribly right now.
All right. I swore I was going to ask you a hockey one this week, so we'll squeeze it in.
Lucky.
After going up 3-1 in the series and then getting crushed last night at home, the Toronto Maple Leafs will have to sweat out a Game 7 at home. Meaning, I'm asking you, are they escaping Ottawa with a series?
I'm going to say that they will. The answer is J, and if only because I know very little of hockey, and I admit as much. But to me, one of the most baffling stories in North American sport is the inability
of the team in the largest city in Canada to win a bleeping Stanley Cup. They haven't won the Stanley Cup since the 60s. That's insane. I mean,
And back then, there were what?
Probably like
nowhere near as many teams as there are now.
No, I would say
Like most of the Canadian Stanley Cups came when there were only 6 teams in the league.
Montreal has done it or whatever, but I mean, since then, a team in Texas, multiple teams in Florida, a team in Raleigh, North Carolina.
A team in Nashville almost did it one year.
But the team that is in Toronto, a city about the same size as Chicago, in a hockey mad nation, can't win the Stanley Cup. So yes, they'll sweat it out. They'll probably even get beat.
Which would be hilarious.
Which would be sad for them, but
So
yes,
Leafs.
maybe hilarious. Hour 3 coming up. The Joint Chiropractic Center is ready to help you out when you're just feeling a little stiff, waking up with back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. Get back in the game with the Joint Chiropractic Centers. You never have to worry about an appointment at the Joint. You never have to worry about insurance at the Joint. You can just show up and they'll take care of you real quick. They're open Monday through Friday, 10 until 7, Saturdays, 10 until 4, located on Harbison Boulevard, Forest Drive, Roberts Branch, Northeast Columbia, Sunset Boulevard in Lexington. The Joint is convenient. It's affordable. It helps you maintain a healthy body, and they can help you prevent reoccurring issues. All right, things that just kind of keep bothering you. If you've never been, a $29 initial visit gets you a consultation, exam, and an adjustment, and you can see for yourself just what they can do for you. Janet and Bob Keene been doing it a long time. Great people to work with. Remember this, at The Joint, you don't have to feel bad to feel better.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a couple of reports of heavy traffic backups here in the Midlands, starting with heavy traffic backup on I-20 eastbound between US 601 at exit 92 and US 521 at exit 98. We also have reports of stop-and-go traffic. None of these appear to be accident-related. On I-26 westbound between Sunset Boulevard at exit 110 and I-20 near exit 107B.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Wednesday. Welcome back in. Also, the final hour of the Postgame Show alongside Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Do want to remind you, of course, big day today for Coach Dawn Staley. Her statue unveiled just moments ago, a few blocks west of where we currently sit.
West?
That's right. And a little bit later on here in fact, in about 15, 20 minutes, Columbia City Councilman Peter Brown will be joining us here in studio to discuss not only what he saw today with the ceremony, and how happy Dawn was, but what Dawn Staley has meant for the city and others to get together to want to do this for her now. She has always been a rock star.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Tyler asked me earlier, I was telling the story of back when Dawn and Darren Horn were hired in the same offseason, I was doing, I was the MC of the Columbia Tip-Off Club for several years, and I was that year as well. And, Tyler just asked me, like, what was the reaction like when she was hired? I was like, man, listen, it was huge because she was Dawn Staley then. You know, the only thing that's happened since she's been in Columbia, and I say the only thing, I say this tongue in cheek, is that her reputation has grown because, you know, when she got here, I mean, she had been to a Final Four as a player. She was an all-star as a pro. She had 3 gold medals. She was voted to carry the American flag in the opening ceremony of the Athens Olympics. She was already a rock star. She was already
a huge deal.
Maybe the best point guard that women's basketball's ever had. Now she's got, all these Final Four trips and 3 national championships and, multiple players picked first in the WNBA draft. I mean, she's
become the new blood of the sport.
But we'll talk to Councilman Brown just about, putting all this together and, again, the bigger picture stuff, because she's awesome, man. That's all
rules.
She does. Gamecock baseball to start our headlines. Wins last night over Charleston Southern wasn't pretty, but Coach Paul Maneri saying, hey, all wins are good wins, and we did just enough.
Well, I know I sound like a broken record, but, after a tough way to finish the weekend series, chance to win the series on Sunday, and we didn't do it, but the guys came back, and, we did just enough to win today. I think our pitching was really good. Obviously, Jarvis gave us a quality start. Caleb came in and got a big out for us to end the inning. And then, even though they got the crowd through in the second inning, I thought he did a good job, up until, I had to take him out. And then I was just so proud of Ryder Guarino to come in and get 2 big outs for us. And he hadn't pitched in a while, but he really attacked the hitters and did a good job. And at the end of the day, Sweeney gave up a run, but you get the last out before they tie or take the lead. That's what, closers are supposed to do. So we'll take the win and move on to the Gators.
Florida comes to town Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll have more details later in the week. Carolina will be honoring multiple former baseball teams, including the 50th anniversary of the first team that went to the World Series and actually played for a national title back in 1975. And speaking of baseball, tomorrow on the program, our good friend John Whittle will be joining us to discuss more of what's going on around the program. One more from Coach Maneri here. By now, most of you have heard both Nathan Hall and Ethan Petrie on the shelf with injuries. For Ethan, Coach did give a post-game update, and it's still not looking good. He will not be playing this weekend for sure. Coach Maneri said for Ethan, maybe the final weekend against LSU or potentially even an SEC tournament appearance. All schools do go to the SEC tournament this year. Basically, it's the same format as the basketball tournament now.
Copied and pasted.
It really is. Yeah, it's the exact same format. But even that's not a done deal at this point. And for Nathan Hall, maybe an opportunity this weekend. Said the foot that he injured a few weeks ago was bothering him, and Coach Maneri didn't want him to get anything aggravated on the AstroTurf up in Kentucky. So maybe we see him, but he did not play last night. And on that note, I tell you those things because, again, 5 runs against a team where you probably should have scored more. Coach said, hey, we had to do it shorthanded.
Well, I hope we don't depend on rough pitches and errors by the first baseman. But Evan Stone came through with a clutch single, 2-run single at a big time. And we had other opportunities. We just didn't cash in. And, somebody's going to have to step up. Tonight, Evan Stone did in one critical situation. But we had other opportunities, and we just didn't, come through. But, when you don't have a lot of home run power in your lineup, you better come through with with the RBI opportunities, and we did just enough today because our pitching was really good. But on another day, if our pitching gives up 7 or 8 runs, it's not going to be enough. So we're going to have to, figure out who gives us the best chance, and hopefully they'll come through with some big hits for us.
So there you go. Again, Carolina and Florida this weekend over at Founders Park. Continuing our integrated media headlines of the day, the NFL has fined the Atlanta Falcons franchise, and they have additionally fined defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich after the Shedeur Sanders prank call. By now, most of you have heard that Coach Ulbrich's son, Jax, was at the heart of the prank call. He and some buddies thought it would be funny. Ulbrich said today, the coach said today, quote, "My actions of not protecting confidential data were inexcusable. My son's actions were absolutely inexcusable, and for that, we are both deeply sorry." The Falcons have to pay a $250,000 fine. Coach Ulbrich will be paying a $100,000 fine. I mean, listen, NFL, he makes a lot of money. He's a defensive coordinator, so that's not going to cripple his family or anything. But you know what? $100,000 is still $100,000, and this isn't someone who's making, $20 or $30 million like some players do. He's making a couple mil probably. So again, it's not going to cripple the Ulbrich family. But I can only imagine what the conversation between father and son is like in a situation like that. Where, hey, kid, you know what you just did? You just cost us $100,000.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, and for what?
Man, I can't imagine how much trouble I would be in for costing, like, my dad $100,000. I remember, like, how scared I was. Like, when I was about, 13 years old, Jay Phillips, I had one of those little pitchback machines. It's like not even a machine. It's like a netting, right? It's got a little strike zone on it. And you throw at it, and it bounces back to you, right? And that's how I used to work on pitching as a kid. I had it in my mom's front yard. And one day, I was like, it'd be really cool if I lean this thing all the way back, throw the ball on it as hard as I can to see how high of a pop fly I can catch. I did that. It went too far, and it busted the windshield of my stepdad's BMW. Oh, no. I was terrified to go back into that house. Terrified. I almost wet myself doing it, right? I was terrified. He'd be like, "Hey, Rick, sorry, I may or may not have busted the windshield to your new BMW. I'm really sorry."
I may or may not have.
May or may not have. It's all very alleged right now. You might have to go take a look.
It was a squirrel and a dog, and
and that wasn't $100,000 worth of repair to that vehicle.
Right.
I was that terrified to have to put up with that punishment. I could not imagine having to answer to a parent after costing them that much money, regardless of how much money they actually make.
And how do you, like I say, earn it back? You don't, obviously,
you don't,
but what do you do?
You go get drafted, kid. Yeah, then you can pay that money to me back.
Right. Ulbrich said, "I promise my son and I will work hard to demonstrate that we are better than this." I feel badly for him. Look, yes, it's confidential information. I get it, right? But if you can't trust your college-age son, if for just a moment there's something up on your iPad screen that your kid sees and then decides that's what he's going to do with it, yes, I guess he should have done more, but like, should he? You know what I mean? It's like, yes, but really, again, if you were at the Starbucks, and you're out having coffee and you have it up, yeah, okay, then you're being a little lazy with it. But if you're literally at home and your 21-year-old son, I wouldn't want my 1-year-old couldn't do anything with it.
Right.
My 10-year-old probably wouldn't think about prank calling. Now, high school and beyond, okay. But I would like to think that gets out of a young male, having been one myself, by about 16, 17, 18, hopefully by 18. Hopefully by the time you leave home to go to college, even if you're back home for a little bit. So, yeah, it's his responsibility. It's Coach Ulbrich's responsibility, but
Like, what are you doing giving that number out to your kid?
Well, yeah, but he didn't even give it to him. The kid saw it.
He saw it. Yeah.
Like the iPad was just up, and there was a phone number for I guess some play. I guess he had players. You know, he wasn't going to be calling Shedeur.
Right.
He's a defensive coach. He might be calling defensive picks, or they might whatever. But you've got numbers for contacts, and the kid saw it. I find it hard to fully blame the coach for trusting his 21-year-old son.
Which is why he probably deserves a nice slap on the back of the head.
I mean, kid needs to go jump in a Shark Tank with bacon grease and see what happens for a minute or something. You know, no, not really, but
I would have been slapped so hard outside the back of my head that my brain would have looked like a racquetball.
Yeah, I mean,
bouncing back and forth on the wall. Which is my skull.
I can only imagine. And you know, football coaches. Well, is it different? Probably not. But
can't be.
My goodness. So anyway, so he has to pay.
I think he should be tackled. Shedeur Sanders gets one free run at him.
That's what you're. Yeah.
Oklahoma drill. You versus Shedeur.
One other thing too on that story, Coach Ulbrich did say. Let me get to the quote here. Well, I don't have it. I must have been another article I was reading, but he mentioned how incredibly kind both Dion and Shedeur were when they spoke, and how they didn't need. He said they went above and beyond with their graciousness, I think was what I saw. So that's something, despite all the other things that we may have heard this weekend. Anyway, there you go. Speaking of Atlanta teams, Braves won again last night. That's 8 of 10, but they trail right now. They'll have one more crack at it. Right now it is a 2-1 Rockies, bottom of the 8th in Denver. Nobody on for the Rockies at this point in time. So the Braves have one more shot at it in the top of the ninth. Otherwise, they'll drop this one. But still been a very productive road trip thus far. And coming back around, one more story on the draft. The final TV numbers are in. Earlier, we had seen that they were good. Now, I guess the more complete TV numbers are out. And it was the second most watched draft in NFL history. The most watched since 2020, with nearly 13 million viewers combined across the ESPN and NFL Network platforms. The household rating ranks 5th all time. And even though, again, a pretty weak, relatively speaking, draft in terms of like star power, name recognition, I think the Shedeur thing really did begin to just hold people's attention, man.
It absolutely did, especially on days 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Because then once you realize about midway through the second day of the draft where you realize, oh, he's not going tonight.
Right.
And then you tune in. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I tuned in on day 3. I never watched day 3 of the NFL draft. I put it on for 30 minutes to see if how far the slip keeps happening.
I had it on. I was watching some soccer and some golf, and I was doing some stuff and just put it on as kind of background noise. So, yeah, I'm with you. And I wouldn't typically do that. If anything mattered, I'd get an alert on my phone.
Right.
You know? So, anyway, there you go. But the second most watched draft in terms of viewers in the history of the NFL. So, that's something. That's something. That's our integrated media headlines of the day, 803-948-8327. We'll talk more about what Dawn Staley means to Columbia after a big ceremony downtown today. Councilman Peter Brown will be joining us when the postgame show returns. Guys, you're not feeling like yourself these days as you're starting to age just a bit, whether it's your personal life, maybe it's in between the ears, maybe it's, your love life,
your workout routine, whatever it might be, don't stop and just say, I can't do anything about this. Don't wonder about it. Go see Dan Balknight and his team at the men's clinic. Dr. Balknight and his staff dedicated to helping men get back to feeling the way they want to. Experts in healthcare for men. You can set up an initial consultation at 803-875-MENS, and you can learn more at themensclinicsc.com. There is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all treatment. There's no magic pills. These are medical professionals. They've been doing it for a long time, and again, dedicated to making you feel the way you want to. Again, 803-875-MENS. Do it for yourself. Do it for your family. Go see the men's clinic. Nineteen minutes after 5 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Welcome back in. Postgame show rolling on. Drive around the SEC in just a little bit. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Happy to be joined here in the Herndon Chevy Studios by Columbia City Councilman Peter Brown, who quite literally just walked his way up from the Don Staley statue celebration to join us here. How are you, sir?
Great. Good to see you, neighbor.
Good. Yeah, exactly. Is he on mute, Elijah? I think that microphone might be muted on the other. Speaking to that again? Yeah, I think he's on mute. Hang on one second. We'll get you. I can hear you in here, but they can't hear you. So hold on one second, and we'll get you. Yeah, it is. Is he good? And now, No, that one's not wanting to work, Elijah.
Let's have him use that second one right
You
there.
don't have to move here. I'll just move this over to you. Sorry, live.
Look at that.
There we go. Just come on over here.
Usually, yeah, when that light's on right there, it should be working.
I don't
But
know.
it's the
How's that?
microphone
That is better.
on.
There it is. Now we
All
can.
right, now we're talking.
Now we got you.
That's better.
All right. Good to see you.
Much better.
Yes.
All right.
How are you?
I'm good. Good. It's really good to be here.
yeah.
And what a great last hour in Columbia.
Well, let's get into that. I mean, Dawn's obviously been here a long time now and has become a fixture. Typically, something like this, a statue for someone is done, I don't want to say posthumously, but certainly post-career.
Right.
And instead, we know that she's got years and years and years left in her, and she ain't going anywhere anytime soon. Take us through, I mean, this is not just a city thing. There's a lot of folks involved, but obviously the city heavily involved in this. So just when I say from a government perspective, I mean, just take us through. You can't just say, hey, let's put a statue somewhere. That's true. It's not that easy.
I think what we got to really do first and foremost is give the mayor, Rickman, a lot of credit. I mean, it takes at least one person to really, really, really drive something.
Right.
Everybody else can be on board, but it takes that one person to really drive this. And I think we got to give the mayor some credit, and I think give the city some credit. Obviously Dawn deserves this and more, but it's not about Dawn the basketball coach. It's Dawn the person.
Right.
But it's also what she does and what she means for the community in this city and the fabric of our community. So I think that's what's really exciting about this is it's a statue, yeah. And 50 years from now when someone sees it, they're going to be like, "Oh yeah, she was an amazing coach."
Right.
But they won't be there to know that she was an amazing person and really has uplifted this community probably almost like nobody else.
Well, that's another thing, and I want to focus on that point because you and I, and I'm certain that many listeners, we grew up here, we were born and raised here, and we've raised our families here. We love Columbia,
Yep.
But we know Columbia is not Atlanta or Philadelphia or Washington or whatever, and we've had famous people make their way through. Right?
Not here.
Right.
Through.
Yeah. I mean, Coach McGuire for a bit, Coach Spurrier, Coach Holtz, and we're thankful for their time. Dawn could have gone to Ohio State a few years ago.
Yeah.
She can go to a lot of places.
Probably picked a spot.
Yeah.
And
then she
made
could
it happen.
Yeah.
If she wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, maybe only Stores, Connecticut isn't looking for her.
Yeah, right,
And,
for sure.
I mean, will they call her when Gino retires? Anyway, I don't want to go down that road.
Probably not. They probably
not.
had enough
they
of
won't.
Dawn.
Yeah, maybe they won't. But no, seriously, you touched on it. What she's done, because yes, she has created an environment in that building around winning basketball games, but she is a fixture in the city. She's made it home. She does so much to help less fortunate children, and in
It's
so
quiet too. It's not.
she doesn't look for the attention. She just goes and does it.
do
But
it. It's
what she
quiet.
means to Columbia is a big deal.
And I it's just being there for the last hour. It feels just different here, and it feels different in Columbia. It feels like it's. Yeah, people are invested in Dawn, but they're also invested in Columbia. And maybe for the first time, and learning how to celebrate, learning how to be proud and learning how to just have fun and learning how to take somebody and Dawn wasn't born here, but she's ours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's it. She ain't leaving.
And it's coming up on 20 years. That's
Yeah,
hard
I
to
know.
believe, but it's
That's
coming
hard
up
to
on
believe.
20
Yeah.
years.
It doesn't feel like it. And I think part of it is that just the way she goes about her business.
Yeah.
And it is, it's about giving back. And I think Columbia is just in a really good place. Dawn's amazing, but I think this is just part of what it's like going to be in Columbia for a while.
For those of you who haven't seen the statue yet, because again, the unveiling just took place, within the last hour and a half, it is spectacular. It's Dawn climbing the top of a ladder, holding a cut net.
Right.
And we talk about it so often in this room, and people do everywhere. Dawn's most favorite thing is to cut down a net.
But I also think the ladder's got something to do with it.
climbing.
Climbing the ladder, and my parents wasted enough money on my education over the years that I learned a couple things. And
Right. Nice metaphors.
You can figure a few things out. But, yeah, climbing the ladder and then cutting the net.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of life, But as Reverend McDowell, my counterpart on city council, said, you got to get down off that ladder too.
Yeah.
And you got to get back, that's what life's all about. Is getting back in there and trying it again and doing it again.
Oh, certainly. And that's one thing that I was fascinated about was kind of like how fast it seemingly came together. I got the email with the press release on Monday, and I was looking at the date thinking, oh, okay, cool. A statue's being unveiled. This is probably going to be, 2026, 2027? I was like, oh, no. It's 48 hours from now. This seemingly came up pretty fast and pretty well kept on the down low. What was kind of, the process of getting to where we are today to get this statue out there?
Well, I think what's amazing is the mayor is obviously the last 2 years have gone a lot slower for the mayor than it has for the rest of us on this process. I think what's also really amazing is I think it's just in the perfect place. It's not. Like Dawn says, it's not just stuck there at the CLA,
right.
Which would be fine.
Yeah.
But it's in the vista, and it's in the midst of the community and what we consider like the, downtown, area. And I think that's what's so also symbolic of it is that's where the people are. And I just think it's been an amazing process. I'll give the mayor also more credit and the staff for kind of quietly rolling this thing through and then saying, all right, we're here.
Right.
So it's pretty special, I think.
How long? Again, there's hoops to jump through, but I imagine in terms of hoop jumping, this was probably relatively easy for city government.
The good news is, I tell people the good news is we're in charge. I think once Daniel got Dawn on board, I think it was pretty well cooked from there. But the artist, and getting it to feel and look right and kind of be that symbol of, I think it's a symbol of hope and really hope, success, power, and just, it is greatness. So.
Well, it is. I think you make a great point. It's an excellent metaphor as you stop and think about it. It's a snapshot of a moment of something she wants to do. And again, Carolina fans know she's cut down a lot of nets these days, but I like what you said, that it's a little bit more than that. How much do you know, or can you tell us about what the statue was going to look like? Was that a collaboration?
I really wasn't in management on this, so I really don't know how it all came about. I know Dawn had her. It was really about the artist, but it's also about the person. So I think there was a good collaboration between Dawn and the artist to really just capture that moment. And like you said, it's a moment, but it's also a pretty big metaphor.
And then on a day like today, too, obviously a lot of speakers, a lot of people who are willing to share a lot of fun stories and information about Dawn. Did we have a highlight from the ceremony today?
Man, that's tough. I'm telling you, everybody was. I think Judy Gatson might have been the highlight. She kind of stole the show. So, but I think what you see is it's just this amazing connection within the community with people. And I mean, there wasn't one person out there who was forced to be there.
Right.
Everybody wanted to be there, and that's unusual. It was pretty hot out there too. I got to be honest with you. So I drank a lot of water.
Well, when I came in today, I did say it got hot today.
It really did.
Yeah, it did
quickly.
But I think the secret is that's a 1-2 event. That's not I gotta do this event.
Yeah. Sit tight. We got some more. We get a drive around the SEC as well, but more with Columbia City Councilman Peter Brown on a big day for Dawn Staley, for the city of Columbia, for the University of South Carolina. You are listening to the Postgame Show.
From the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a couple of reports of heavy traffic in the area. It doesn't appear to be accident-related. One heavy traffic area is over on I-20 eastbound. That is between US 601 and exit 92 and US 521 at exit 98. We also have some serious stop-and-go traffic reported over on I-26 westbound. That appears to be between Sunset Boulevard near exit 110 and the I-20 exit 107B.
It is Drive Around the SEC time, and we'll blend a little more sports in as Columbia City Councilman Peter Brown is with us here in studio today, fresh off the Dawn Staley statue unveiling just a couple of blocks away over at Senate and Lincoln, I guess in front of the Alumni Center and the Convention Center. Yeah, let me turn this back.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, it was really. I'm telling you, it's just.
Did you speak?
I did not speak.
Did you sing?
Nope, I did not. I was given.
Shouldn't you have?
No roles.
If you were to sing, what would you sing?
Man, that's a good one. What would I say?
I don't know.
Yeah. I might have to get back to you on that one.
Some Fleetwood Mac, maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
I don't know.
Edge of 17 would go pretty hard at a statue unveiling ceremony. Not going to lie.
Let me get to this real quick here, and then we'll talk more. Baseball last night, drive around the SEC. Western Kentucky beat Kentucky. Way to go, Hilltoppers. What's his name?
That's Big Red.
Big Red. Yeah,
Best mascot in sports.
Big Red Grimace.
Essentially, yes, but with a much more flexible bottom part than Grimace.
Yeah.
Grimace doesn't have that rhythm.
That's true. But WKU beats UK 6-4. Vandy gets by Indiana State. No Larry Bird on that baseball team.
Ain't walking through that door.
No, he's not walking through that door. 5-2 the final. Tennessee Volunteers kind of sweated out against Northern Kentucky. 7-5 the final score.
You know where Northern Kentucky is, Jay?
You told me yesterday in the northern part of Kentucky.
Oh, you would be correct.
Yeah. We never did find out where it is.
I
should look
find
that
out
up
in like 2 clicks.
We know South Carolina, of course, already talked about that. 5-3 winners over Charleston Southern. Georgia gets by Kennesaw State 9-2.
Northern Kentucky is in Highland Heights.
I knew that.
Yeah, everybody does.
Everybody does. It's basically Cincinnati.
I have been to the Cincinnati.
Except Cincinnati's not in Kentucky.
I say, yeah, but the Cincinnati airport.
It's close to it.
The Cincinnati airport is.
That's right.
I've been there a few times. It's a fine establishment if you're just moving along.
I've never flown
one place to another.
Out of Cincinnati.
Just for full disclosure, I installed signs in the Northern Kentucky airport.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when I was in college. I guess right after college.
Yeah.
For Colite.
That's I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's good for Colite.
Yeah,
good for your company.
Oh yeah, it was not. Let me put it this way: you were a long way away from Cincinnati when you were there.
But the river's there. You can see the river, and it's all. Yeah, but it is far. It's you're not. It's nowhere close to.
Did go to some Reds games. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah.
I'm jealous. Yeah,
just a Reds fan.
I've never been to Great American Ballpark.
No, I didn't either because it was a long time.
Old Riverfront. Old Riverfront.
Riverfront.
Kansas beats Missouri 9-3. Poor Missouri. They are just not good.
They're terrible.
They're really good at losing baseball games.
Yeah. Mississippi State
Glass half full.
Fires Chris Lemonis and then scores 18 runs against Memphis, who's also not very good. But
no, they're not. Derrick Rose ain't walking through that door.
Justin Parker, former Gamecock pitching coach, took over as interim head coach at Mississippi State. And if y'all didn't hear that earlier this week, Chris Lemonis got fired. Won a national title 4 years ago.
Long time ago.
It is an eternity in today's world. Auburn goes to Samford and wins. Actually, I think they played at the Hoover Met. 3-0 was the final. I don't think Samford plays their home games at the Hoover Met, do they? They might, actually.
Not that I'm aware of.
I don't think they do.
I do have a friend who's a Samford grad I could ask.
Texas A&M beats Lamar 13-6. Texas over Prairie View 11-2. Austin Peay falls to Ole Miss. The Governors lose 6-3 to the Rebels. LSU all over poor Okay, did we figure out it was southern Louisiana or southeast? Southeast Louisiana. 15-2. And Oklahoma and Wichita State were rained out, as were Arkansas and Missouri State. Some bad weather in that part of the world. So there you go. There's a quick look at what's going on around the SEC. And again, South Carolina and Florida will get together this weekend. Gamecocks through the weekend will be honoring the 1975, 2010, and 2011 baseball teams. Councilman Peter Brown is here with us. Speaking of sports, we had a tweet. It was kind of tongue-in-cheek earlier, asking us, because you probably know that Clemson had the Savannah Bananas baseball team up there.
It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, sold it out and turned the field at Death Valley into a baseball stadium or baseball field for a day. And I said, look, that's great. Williams-Brice last summer had the Liverpool-Manchester United match, which was absolutely phenomenal.
It's a lot easier to go to that one than to go to
it is a lot easier to attend things in Columbia than it is in Clemson. And that's not a knock on Clemson. That's just where Clemson is geographically. But that's a whole other story. Clemson fans don't like hearing that. But I didn't put Clemson where Clemson is. Clemson did.
That's true.
Anyway.
They got the land for free.
They did. Yeah, a long time ago. What more are you guys looking at on city council in terms of working with Carolina to bring those kind of events in? It's not as easy as just snapping your fingers. I mean, NCAA tournaments, when we need hotel space and some things like that. But what's the horizon look like? I know what kind of sports fan you are. I know what kind of sports fan Mayor Rickman is too. So I know you guys want that.
What it really, really, really takes is collaboration. And we do have really good collaboration going on right now within the city, the university, Experience Columbia, all these different factions kind of come together. And there is a vibe component, but there's a reality component after the vibe. And I liken this world we live in, the three-dimensional whack-a-mole. So you got hotels, you got people, you got the university, you've got young people, older. You got all these things that all have to kind of come together. And then a lot of times it might take luck too. But I think you'll see. Over the next few years, a lot more emphasis on sports and entertainment. And maybe not to get too far ahead, some of that might be more permanent and some of that might be, more temporary. But I think there's a real push for quality of life type things that we've probably never really kind of bought into before.
Yeah, it's fair.
So I think there's a lot of cool stuff coming. Maybe I can announce one of them sometime in the future on the show. So just hang in there, hold tight.
Yeah, so again, as a lifer, I know we had some things for a bit, before Charlotte built an NFL stadium, or even when I was younger and Charlotte didn't have much of an arena, and we got all the concerts.
Yeah,
and now you just sort of have seeded those kind of things to.
We made a lot of progress in Columbia. We just weren't on the same trajectory as other places.
Right.
But I think that's changing, and I think part of it is a little bit of the old Spurrier, why not us, attitude, but a little bit more of the let's just do it, let's go, come on, we can do this.
Just bring Arsenal to town for me, will you?
We'd love to all the time.
Yeah,
just make them a sister city or something.
Okay, hey, you tell me, man.
Let's go.
I'll write letters. What do I need to do?
Let's go.
I'll throw up on air.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's bring them in.
Yeah, sadly, Elijah and my wife and Michael Haney, my old partner, and many others like Arsenal's rival. So it's a Carolina Clemson thing. And but Arsenal's better than them, so I don't care.
Yeah, you're good.
I tried.
I'm pleading the fifth.
You got quiet in there.
He did.
It did. Yeah. Did. I have no rebuttal. It's a fact.
All right.
They're terrible.
All right. And we're celebrating Dawn Staley today and her statue. All right. But who's next? What statue are we doing next here? What are we going to do?
I don't know. We got some time, I think, in between statues. But I do think there's a better environment. And again, the mayor really leads the charge on this about celebrating Columbia, celebrating Columbians, and not digging deep to find people. But, we got a lot of things to be proud of here. And I think you're going to see a little bit more of a proud tour in Columbia.
I'm glad. And I tell people a lot, too. When you come, and so many people Peter, when they do see visitors come in, they I get so much of, oh, it's the hottest place on earth. I'm like, all right, you know what? I've been to Charlotte when it's 97 degrees, and you know what it is up there? It's bleeping hot,
right?
Right? But so many people also, you realize when they get here, like, oh, I didn't know y'all had this, or I didn't know y'all had that, or man, y'all's food scene is like way underrated, or I love the Soda City more. There's so many things to just appreciate that if you just stop and smell the roses, it'd be all right.
There's one thing being humble. There's another story, but we're telling our story now, and I think it's resonating with people, and we're going to be known for something more than hot in Fort Jackson.
Right.
You run into people and they go, "Oh my,
Right.
I was in Fort Jackson in 1967. It's the hottest place in the world."
But I've talked to a lot of guys who came through, and they when they're done with their service,
they're staying here.
They moved to Columbia.
Yeah, they're staying here.
Yeah,
for sure.
Just make us this promise, all right? When Bill Gunner comes to you guys for a statue, you just tell him no.
I won't even entertain it.
Yeah, just tell him.
And for my statue, can we just put a little extra muscle mass on there? We can. I will give you free reign to embellish a little bit.
I think pretty much every artist does that, don't they?
I don't know.
So they gotta kind of.
But Gunner's going to want one now.
That's where I want my embellishment.
Gunner's going to want a statue. So just don't let him.
We're not going to do that.
Yeah, that's good. All right. He is Councilman Peter Brown, and appreciate the time. Congrats on what's going on around the city.
Thanks.
And a big day for Coach Staley and
Really
for the city.
Just
big deal.
Another really, really, really unbelievable day in Columbia.
We know you're a huge college football fan, so you do need to come in more and just rap with us about that this summer.
Bring
at some
the takes.
Point.
Yep, finally gotten over Notre Dame's loss in the national championship.
Proud Notre Dame alum.
Didn't expect to be there, so we
they'll
got
be
a good
back.
shot at coming back.
I think they'll be back.
Yep.
I think they'll be back. Thank you, sir.
All
Appreciate you. That's Peter Brown. We'll wrap it up on the other side. It's the Postgame Show. 11 minutes in front of 6 o'clock here on a Wednesday afternoon. Final few minutes of the post-game show. Thanks again to Councilman Peter Brown for joining us here for a little bit on a big day for Coach Dawn Staley. Statue unveiled again. If you hadn't seen it, it's very cool. I haven't seen it in person. I've only seen it on television. So I do want to go drive down there ASAP and take a look. But it's Dawn on top of climbing up a ladder, but holding a net. Very symbolic. As Peter said, not just that snapshot of winning a championship or anything like that, but the metaphor of climbing the ladder, achieving your goals, the kind of inspiration that Dawn provides.
There's some good symbolism there.
I love it. It's a big deal. Good stuff. And he can't let on, but he just told us again off air, in addition to what he said, he just repeated it, but he said, hey, just, we're working on some things. Be on the lookout sports-wise for some stuff here in town. I'm like, hey, I'm in. I don't know what it is, but you got my interest.
That's the best cliffhanger he could have possibly left us with.
Yeah.
Because now my brain is going through all the scenarios of what it could be.
Well, I would love to hear, and I don't know, and he didn't. I promise y'all, he didn't. But as we've talked about, we know that some of the things that we had an NCAA tournament here a few years ago for the men, and the number one drawback the NCAA says is just Columbia needs more full-service hotels, and they have certain things like 24-hour access to food. You need to have enough meeting space for the teams and things like that. And we have more hotels coming, but not necessarily that fit the bill for what they're looking for. So hopefully things like that begin to come around a little bit more. And as he said, just collaboration with a willing partner in the University of South Carolina goes a long way because a lot of the big facilities are obviously theirs. There was a time, I talk about it a lot. I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, but, 30 years ago, there was an opportunity to have the NFL here for a season. And the athletics director said no. And I know for a fact, Peter back then wasn't on city council, but I know people who were back then. And I know a lot of other local leaders who were unhappy, and that's me being real kind.
I could have brought in some money.
Well, and just money, exposure, just so much for the city and the school. And then not only to turn it down, but to basically gift wrap it to your rival.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always want to look at something like that in a strict sports rivalry sense.
But there's an effect there that's real.
Yeah. So instead of Williams-Brice Stadium being showcased 8 times that fall, it was Death Valley. Did it end up making a big difference one way or another? I don't know. But when it's and the Panthers were going to pay Carolina a lot of money to do a few things to enhance the ballpark. And why Coach McGee said no, I get it, and I've gone back and forth with a few people who worked with him back then, and they've given me very plausible reasons as to why. I get it. I just don't agree with it, And so the point I'm making here now is I'd like to think after, we've seen here of late that Liverpool United game last year, the Beyonce show a couple of years ago, things like that. Obviously, CLA speaks for itself in terms of what it can do. But what more can we do because it's easy to get here.
Mm-hmm. It's close to a lot.
It's close to a lot of things.
Cities.
Yeah, I mean, and we do have things to do. We don't just have a lake and a zoo. But anyway, I'm the gleam in Councilman Brown's eye tells me to be on the lookout for something sports related here soon. So I don't know what that is, but
something's coming.
Yeah. Unless it's like a Tottenham game.
Oh, man. I mean, if we wanted to expose...
Or if the Mets are coming for like an exhibition.
That would be the worst. That would be the worst possible.
I'll just go and heckle all day, so I'll go do that.
I did go to a Mets spring training game and talked to a long-haired reliever in the bullpen because we were out by the bullpen basically just like talking to players and
comparing hair
and stuff. And and that's what we did. We were talking to her. I was like, "Hey man, what shampoo you use?" And it was some little known rookie.
Right.
And I remember looking at his last name. I didn't remember this guy one day. It was Jacob DeGrom.
I was going to say it was DeGrom.
It was DeGrom. Yeah.
Nice.
And I was like, man, that's a sick head of hair, dude. What shampoo you use? And just making small talk with the guys at the bullpen.
Right.
Turned out to be a future Cy Young Award winning pitcher.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, I've told this before. I went to a Mets spring training game in St. Pete one time, and I don't like the Mets, and I've never made a secret of that. But we got to sit down along the fence in pregame, and I'm just telling you, watching Gary Carter throw baseballs from behind the plate just in warm-up to second base, just on frozen ropes. I was like, this is cool. Like, that's Gary Carter.
It's Gary Carter.
Yeah.
I'm watching him put this ball on a rope to second.
Gary Carter. Like, wow. So, pretty good stuff. Thanks to Councilman Peter Brown. Thanks to Lou Bezak and our good friend, Coach Eric Kimry. Fun show today. John Whittle talking baseball tomorrow and so much more. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. For Elijah Campbell, Jay Phillips. See y'all.